Morning. I would just like to give you a brief overview and update from a legal perspective on what's happening in the U.S. markets on the corporate governance front and highlight some of the successes that investors have had that is encouraging them to examine more closely their legal options as they confront either an incompetent or, unfortunately, dishonest boards or executives. First, let's look at what's been happening overall in the U.S. markets in the last 5 years with regard to complying with the letter and the spirit of the law. Since Enron, the number of public companies that have been engaged in accounting scandals and restated their financials has increased over fourfold, from 225 companies in 2001 to well over 1,000 publicly traded companies in 2006. Regardless of the reasons for the frauds, one thing appears to remain constant. It pays well. The pay of the dishonest executives continues to outstrip that of the honest ones. They pocketed 70% more in their compensation. The latest scandal to plague the U.S., which has implicated nearly 2,000 publicly traded companies, is the exposure of what we're calling the options backdating scandals, or the practice of granting stock today at last year's lowest stock price. I'm sure many of you would love to buy shares today at last year's lowest price, just as we would all love to be able to bet on yesterday's horse race. But unfortunately, that's an option that's been reserved exclusively for U.S. executives. So having been caught yet again in so many companies, are we seeing any contrition or humility out of corporate America? Well, no. They're seeking to repeal the laws that protect shareholders and protect investors. After all, if you have trouble obeying the rules, why not just change the rules? The attack on investor protections in the U.S. is organized, it's sophisticated, and frankly, it's shameless, as many commentators have pointed out. Recently, U.S. Treasury Secretary Paulson released his report of the ironically named Committee on Capital Markets Regulation, because they really prefer no regulation, which they basically argue for a regulatory world in which virtually anything goes. Not surprisingly, the report also called for greater protection of auditors and executives from shareholders. But there's some good news. As regulators are retreating, shareholders are stepping up. PricewaterhouseCoopers just recently published their study demonstrating that institutional investors are increasingly leading major shareholder class actions in the U.S. and are driving settlements to historic highs. Institutional investors, public funds, industry funds, Taft-Hartley funds are producing superior recoveries for their beneficiaries. And those funds are not just seeking compensation. They want improvements in corporate governance to prevent the very same mistakes that have occurred and caused the losses from repeating themselves in the future. Institutional investors in the U.S. and around the world are leading the way in individual actions, direct actions, not part of the class, that are increasingly important ways for funds to recover higher percentages of losses. Funds participating are receiving or recovering huge amounts. But more significant, the smaller funds are able to hook up with the larger losers or the larger investors like cars on a train and share in the benefits that they never could have obtained otherwise without forming such partnerships. A group of over 70 pension funds from around the world, including a half a dozen Australian funds and a dozen or so funds in the UK, have recently settled their claims against Time Warner. These funds recovered 6 to 8, some 10 times what they would have by taking no action in the class action, being passive. So these successes are really going to mean that the bad actors in the corporate community are going to see a lot more litigation by investors, the true owners of America's corporations, to not only compensate their beneficiaries, but to force those stewards of those companies to do their jobs. Shareholders, having been ignored for far too long and too easily, are using legal actions not only to seek compensation, take punitive action, hold executives and boards accountable, but to insist on major corporate governance improvements in the companies that they continue to invest in and hold. But in my mind, what reminds us most to pay close attention to good governance and be ever vigilant are unfortunately the disasters. In the past year, investors in British Petroleum have seen nearly $40 billion in value disappear as a string of horrible accidents have been directly tied to management's conscious decision to starve the workplace safety and environmental compliance budgets within that company. BP's senior executives and board have been exposed for having intentionally skimped on the maintenance for short-term profit gain. We happen to believe, and many of our clients, the funds that we advise, share the belief that companies that treat their customers, their employees, their neighbors, and the environment better are going to produce superior returns, and those that don't, inferior returns. BP, unfortunately, is a near-perfect example of that maxim. Accidents happen, certainly or especially in major industrial corporations. But when markets find out that those accidents were preventable or even caused by management and its policies, the punishment is severe, as has happened in BP. Less than 1 week before the Texas City explosion, the BP site manager at that facility sent an email around to staff. I'll read some of that to you. He said, "The Texas City site has experienced the best profitability ever in its history last year." He then went on to note that after avoiding more than $100 million in environmental monitoring costs and equipment upgrades, the plant had a $930 million profit for the year. Apparently, the environmental equipment would have also made the plant more safe. In less than 1 week from sending this note to employees, this congratulatory note to employees, that $930 million profit, that $100 million in saved upgrades to equipment, turned into 15 dead employees, 500 injured neighbors, and billions of dollars in losses and expenses to shareholders in the company. We have initiated on behalf of the London Pension Funds Authority a corporate governance action, a shareholders action in the U.S. to hold the board and Lord Browne responsible for the failures in the company, basic failures to maintain the equipment, the profitability, the investment, and the safety of the company. And many, many large UK funds are actively lobbying for change. Positive results are obtainable, where investors act together to insist on higher standards and obtain better results and performance. We certainly hope that this trend continues.